The Notcast, life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends, everything that should make you happy, but still there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast podcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
Okay, so the Notcast episode 4. Fuck depression. 3 surefire ways to kick the black dog and get your life back.
Love it. Hello, people.
Hi, we're back. We're still here. Still with the clickbait titles.
Stop telling them.
They're gonna work it out.
Dear.
I'm lowering expectations.
I'm going to make it all sweetness and light. Just go, hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to this week's episode.
And I am absolutely not going to do that.
I know you're not. I know you're not. That's why I am.
Good cop, bad cop.
Take a guess. Oh, okay. So.
Depression.
Yes.
What does depression mean to you?
Well,
that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah,
One big fuck off sigh.
Literally that. Yeah. So on reflection, I guess the most succinct way that I can put it was, for me, it was like disconnecting from life and just leaving the building. Just, yeah. An abandonment of me, myself. Shutting down, not really wanting to feel anything. Yeah, just really being frightened and not understanding what was going on for me. A real disconnection to my feelings and my thoughts and other people. Because I guess if I couldn't connect to me, it was nigh on impossible to try and connect to anybody else. So it just felt like a total disconnection from myself, from life, from other people, and an isolation. I'm almost picturing it right now as me screaming like really loudly within and just nothing coming out. Yeah, just nothing coming out and nobody seeing it. Yeah, it's brings up quite a lot of feelings.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. But I guess disconnection would be my word.
Yeah, it's interesting you use that word, because that's definitely been my experience. And when I use that word with clients, that's often a word that they resonate with. I'm not. So as I was trying to think about, did I used to use that word? Because later in my journey with experiencing depression, I would use that word, but I think that's because I learned that's what it was. But I think it didn't really. I don't know whether I used that word in the early days, back in the day. It was the words that came up for me was stuff like stuck and trapped and heavy. For me, with depression, there's a real sense of there's just of stuckness, of feeling trapped by circumstances, a real this real sense of, what was it you said? You said something along the lines of disconnecting from yourself.
Yeah, like unplugging and just leaving the building.
Yeah, see, that's what's interesting is that when I heard you say that, I thought, well, that's in some ways you're taking ownership of that. And I didn't see that, back in my early in my journey of dealing with depression. It looked really like it was something happening to me. And so it was like, that's where the sense of helplessness came from. And yeah, there was isolation with it. There's definitely isolation with it. But I suppose what I wasn't realizing is that a lot of the time I was kind of cutting myself off.
Yeah. No, I hear that. The cutting self off. But I think for me now, it's on reflection. Because actually, I wrote down some words that came up for me around depression at that time.
Right.
And at that time, it was more around separation and numbness. Like I felt like I couldn't feel anything, but there were so many feelings. And I guess I was trying to disconnect from them because they were too big for me. Well, I thought they were too big for me to handle, that I wouldn't be able to handle all of those thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. So disconnection is what I know it was now.
It's interesting you say that, because I think it did make me kind of think that maybe I was just in a perpetual state of numbness and depression for fucking ages, really, because I wasn't, for a long time I felt like I didn't really feel a lot. It felt more like, I attributed back then, I think, some of my addictive personality, I guess, was to what I would call an addictive personality. What I did call that was to do with trying to feel something, because it was like, if it was really good, if it was really strong, I felt it, or if it was really bad, I felt it, but in the middle, not really. So the whole depression thing was like trying to get away from that.
The middle bit. Yeah.
I think largely I don't know, I think I spent a lot of time chasing something.
Yes.
But yeah, like on reflection, it was about disconnection, and it was about feeling stuck and helpless with it.
Yeah.
Feeling like very much at effect, like there's nothing I can do about this.
Yeah, it's just happening.
And with that sense of helplessness as well would come the judgment as well, was this sense of like, I should be able to be doing something about this. Like I can't, but I should. Yes. And I often say that to clients, like, well, a real pattern I find in depression is this whole sense of, I should be able to do something about this.
Yeah.
But I can't. And that cycle just traps me.
Yeah. All of that resonates so much. Cycle, feeling trapped, helpless. And I guess I used to feel quite desperate as well. Just bleak. It was just, this sense of bleakness. And I think looking back, it was over such a long period of time that it changed over time. So at some points it was like, obviously as a parent, I functioned. So when I became a parent, I functioned. But when I look back now, I can see that I was depressed. Yeah. So I did what I had to do. And I could connect with my kids. Like I could, like the feelings were there. And then I could step back from that and would almost be like, obviously it's there because it's them and I have to because I'm their parent. And then I could step back from that and then everything would change and be different again. I'd be back in that bleak rabbit hole of despair that just never seemed to end. And again, so my thinking then was the effect was from outside. Like that I wasn't doing that in any way, shape or form. That it was just happening.
Yeah, as you were talking about that, a couple of people described depression to me in a similar way, and for me, it's I'm not sure. I don't think it's the whole story, but I think it's a good rule of thumb in a way. Is either a lack of hope or a lack of a big bright, happy future to step into.
Yeah.
And for me, that comes if the world around me or the world I'm in and that I'm operating in looks like if there's a bunch of stuff that I feel I have to do but I can't do it, and also there's nothing really that lights me up.
Yeah.
It's like it's this sense of, right, so I have to do all this shit every day and I don't really want to do it, and I can't really, I don't enjoy it, and I don't see a way of me doing something that is fun or gives me purpose or anything. And then my brain goes, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
Is this all there is?
Yeah. And that is completely what made sense to me. Because when I was thinking about it, it's like, it was a place of existence. I existed. Nothing sparked joy as such.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of given up hope that I'd ever get to a place where anything was going to spark any kind of light within me. Just everything was quite mundane and monotone and just grey.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because this is why for me, so here's my first one. Let's jump in. Before we talk for an hour and then forget we haven't actually
said our tips.
Instead of the point, yeah.
Go on then. Jump in.
So my first tip is to know you're not broken.
Love it.
To know that you're not broken. Because for me, and I know this can be quite controversial, but in my experience, because I'm not a medical doctor, but in my experience, depression is it's a process. It's a perceptual thing. Now, and I know we talked about this before, could be survivorship bias, because obviously I'm only going to have my own experience, and then clients who likely come to me with a certain experience of depression, probably because they've heard me talk about or write about or something like that. And there may be a bunch of other people who don't resonate with my experience of it that I've never met. But yeah, in my experience, it's not a disease, it's not an illness. It's very much a process that we go through, and a normal process in some cases. Like, the way I like to think of it is like if I'm a caveman and it gets wintry, and I look outside and I'm like, well, that looks shit, and there's nothing I can do about it because obviously it's the weather, it's winter. It's like, I should probably hibernate.
Yeah.
And wait and see if it changes, right?
Yeah. Which
kind of makes sense. But for me, what I see is I can see the world that way, but it's not necessarily that way. And when I reflect on my experience, like growing up, a lot of the time I was just, everything looked negative. Like the world looked like a place to survive. It looked like a battlefield, basically. Yeah. Everything always felt hard. Mm-hmm. And I was very good at being pessimistic. I even had like I felt quite proud of the fact that I was pessimistic, because then I can't be disappointed.
True.
But then I was, the world that I saw was a world where there's not really good stuff. If there is good stuff, it's probably not for me, or it's going to go wrong anyway. And if there were any challenges, my default was, well, I won't be able to do that. Which, if you think about it, is a fucking depressing world to live in.
Yeah.
So, understandably, quite a lot, I felt quite down, and what's the point?
Yeah. No, totally understandable. I guess that's a layer that lots of people may not take into account, right? As well. Because because that's the thing, right? Like, the model of my world was everything's really difficult and it's really hard. And you have to work hard, and like it's hard work, and it's this and it's that and that in its own right added a layer of, oh, for fuck's sake, life's so hard. Like, why is it like this for me and not for anybody else? Yeah. And somehow it's even more difficult for me to cope with that. So there must be something wrong with me, so I must be broken.
Yeah.
All right. And I can see how that builds up, because I used to believe that somehow was broken, or there was just some cog missing somewhere that should have been there. But yeah, the world view, the picture of my world was quite bleak. So I can understand how that would feed into all of those things. And that was number 24 on my list.
Of 28.
Yes, that was 24 of my 28 surefire ways. So my first one, I don't know, I get to pick and choose now. It has to be the love one, right? Because that was the first one on my list. There's that face again.
There's this voice in my head going, some might say, Amy, you have a problem with commitment. You want 3 and you have 28.
You just let it flow, though. I'm not going to stop myself. Part of my depression stuff was not expressing myself.
So fuck the rules.
Yes, fuck the rules. I'm going to express myself fully. Because I can. Because it's our podcast.
Which we're going to cut off before an hour, so we'll best rush through your other 27.
Oh, fuck off.
So love.
Huh?
So love.
Yes, love. Lots of love. I guess for me this was the biggest one, because I felt unlovable in that space, and I don't feel like I could let the love in at that point. But it was slowly and step by step sort of turning towards love rather than fear that really helped me to kind of come out of that space, to recognize the love in my life, to recognize that love came from within me. And that to move out of that space, I was really gonna need to be able to shine some love on where I was. So I guess it was about starting where I was.
Yeah.
With a little bit of love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about feeling unlovable, because that was definitely a thing for me, but I didn't realize it until I started to study some of this stuff and be like, oh, these are patterns and this is what's going on. But a big thing, and I forget whether I said this, I probably said this last podcast, or it might have been one of our conversations. I don't remember. But a big thing for me growing up was when I get a partner, when I get a girlfriend, then it will solve all my problems. And that was because I was looking for a way to feel better about myself. But of course, because I felt not okay about myself, I was afraid then of actually doing anything that might involve showing anybody any interest. So then I was like, you could say, sabotaging myself to get this solution that I created in my mind. And therefore I'm feeling lonely and cut off and incapable.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, I'm creating, in a way I didn't realize I'm creating this insolvable problem. And of course then it looks bleak, doesn't it? I know that the way out of my depression is to find a girlfriend, but I'm incapable of doing that. And therefore I'm stuck. So the world looks fucking bleak.
Yeah. And one of the things I actually journaled about when I was thinking about this was pretty much that. I desperately wanted love. Desperately. And yet I fiercely resisted it. So even if it did show up in all of its glory, at that point, I probably would have been like, oh, no, I can't let that in. That's no. That's got to confirm something different, and I can't have that. I need to confirm what I am right now.
Yeah.
This sad, I don't know, zombie. So I wanted it, but I couldn't. I just resisted it hugely. So even if it had come along, I wouldn't have been able to see it. I wouldn't have been able to receive it because I wouldn't have allowed myself to.
Oh, I think I saw it. I was just fucking terrified of it.
I didn't even see it. But again, and that was the difference. Like I had to step into that space of to do something completely different now. If I really want to step out of this, I'm gonna have to shine a little bit of love on it.
Yeah.
Whether that's on the whole, thing about depression, the story that I have about it, or myself. Because until that point, I just saw myself as a victim of everything, including the depression.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, with depression? I know they did, I think it was Martin Seligman, the positive psychology crowd. I think they did some experiments with some not very nice experiments with dogs. And he termed he coined the phrase learned helplessness. If I remember rightly, they basically gave electric shocks to certain dogs, to dogs. Yeah, exactly. Right. I don't think they'd be allowed to do the experiments now.
I should hope not.
But I mean, I may be completely butchering this. Any listeners, if you want to look it up and correct me, feel free. But it's something along these lines. It's like the first group of dogs, if they pushed a button, the electric shocks would stop. And the other group, there was a button there, but if they pressed it, it didn't do anything. And so what they found is when they then shocked these dogs, and so that there was this learning about whether the button works or not, if they then moved them to different cages where there was a button and it would actually answer, like open the door or stop the shock, something like that, the ones that had learned the button doesn't do anything didn't even bother. They would just lay there.
Oh.
Yeah. But isn't that, if you think about how depression works in, or how it can work in people, it's like, I'm at effect. There's no point me doing anything because I already know this isn't going to work. I already know I'm incapable. I already know I'm unlovable. So even though I feel I want love, when it shows up, I know, there's no point me accepting it. It's going to go wrong.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And it is that feeling, right? That, what is the point even? And that's why something has to change, like something has to be different. My door. Okay, my doorbell just rang, so I'm running to go.
Is that when you have to answer it?
Yes. It's a book that I want.
Priorities.
I'm back. Did I actually pause this?
No.
I thought I had. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh. I don't even know where we were at now.
What book is it? Lovability. Well, see, now we have to decide, because obviously we're going to leave this bit in.
No, we're fucking not.
We absolutely are. So now we have to decide, is this about priorities or is it about trust and fear? Face the dragon, Amy, face the dragon.
Oh, look at it. It's so cute.
Anybody who can't hear, there is a stuffed dragon in the background.
You're seriously not just going to leave this in?
Actually, I'm going to leave this in.
Fuck. Okay. Composure. So what's your second one then, David?
Well, first I wanted to just go back briefly, not to rib you about the book, but at least synchronicity, it was about love.
Yeah, you see? Speak about it and it shall arrive.
Build it and they will come.
Yes.
So love, because you were talking about bringing love to depression, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that that made no fucking sense to me early on. Yeah. That really didn't. And one thing that really began to change, tenses, grammar, something that really began to change for me was when I started to to look after myself more. And I had to do that the academic method. It was only because I was learning about shame, because I've always been about, let's dive into the pain and the taboo stuff. So I was learning about shame, and all the stuff reading about shame led to self-compassion. And I was like, what's that? That sounds interesting, intriguing. Sounds an interesting, fluffy word. I wonder what that's about. And yeah, it turns out it's just about, treating you as you would treat someone you actually care about.
Yeah, that.
Which, on the surface, I was like, well, of course I care about myself. But the more I learned about it, and the more I actually thought, it's like, oh no, I don't really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually treat myself as I would. Like, I'm a lot nicer to my friend. Like, I don't say to my friends, like, I don't know, like, well,
Fucking
I
pull
would,
yourself together.
or I would hang out. I would hang out with you, but no, it's not going to work. I don't be like, I would hang out with you, but you haven't finished that list you said you were going to do. So you finish that list, and then I'll hang out with you.
Oh, yeah. See that. The reason I chose love is because it's like I had to do something different to be able to step out of it in any way, shape or form. Otherwise, I just was like just sitting on the same merry-go-round until the point I got sick and tired of feeling fucking sick and tired.
Yeah.
And it just annoyed me.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? When we feel like that, it's the oppositional response. It's like, I fucking hate this. I wish I wasn't depressed. I need to fucking not be depressed. And it, it almost sounds like a positive thing. Yeah, man, let's fight depression. But it's like, when does fighting anything ever fucking help?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And that's what I did at first. I fought it.
Yeah.
Until I kind of realized that really wasn't going to work. I brought some, love and compassion to it. And I'm not saying it was a huge amount, because that's not where I was then. So that would be a lie. But it was that meeting myself in a slightly different place.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this earlier when I thought about, loving something like that, loving something really difficult to love. And I thought, like, the words don't always work for, like, it, depending on the context, it doesn't quite land properly. But I think for me, the way I understand it, at least at the moment, is if I'm bringing love to it, what it is more, it's bringing a willingness to understand, or a curiosity to understand. And that's, for me, moving out of the oppositional response, and it's trusting to listen, because you can't, if you're fighting something, it's the enemy. You're not trying to understand it, you're trying to destroy it. And that's fine if your depression isn't part of you. Well, that's the thing that, again, we talked about this before on previous podcasts, but depression is not a thing outside of you, some disease to be destroyed. It's a process you're going through. So what you call your depression is actually you being depressed. So you're just fighting yourself. This is what I didn't see for years.
Absolutely. It's just I can laugh at it now when I look at the struggle, because it was just such a pointless struggle.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I would put to everybody. Like, how would you treat another person in that situation? Because that was a starting place. It's like, would I really treat somebody else that way? Would I really be that blasé and just be like, pull your shit together? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
You say that though, do you know? Because I was thinking about this.
Oh gosh.
Well,
it's always mad when he starts thinking about shit like this.
Because you're right. Like, outwardly, I would never say to somebody, "Fucking pull your socks up and like sort your shit out," right? But I still was, on some level, judgmental as fuck about certain people. I just wouldn't necessarily say it to their face, because then they might reject me.
That's a whole other podcast episode.
I know, but the point is, right, is that judgment was, like, that ability to judge was still there. And to be fair, especially if somebody was struggling with depression, I probably would be. Well, I would be understanding about that, because I understood what it was like to feel like that and feel helpless. So I would have compassion about that. But in other areas, I was actually still quite judgmental, because I was a judgmental person. That's where I'd learned it. That's why I was coming out in my depression on myself.
Yeah. No, I hear that. Yeah. I don't know if it's moved or changed for you, but I definitely see with myself that, yes, I used to judge myself so fucking harshly. And I generally just thought I was a judgmental human being as well. But what I've realized as the love has grown, that all of those things have changed. And it really was all about me. When I judged me, I judged other people. When I talked to myself like shit, that's how I kind of saw being with other people. So, yeah. And that's why I feel like those first steps of just being able to meet myself in that place with a little bit of kindness, love, compassion, whatever you want to call it, made all the difference in the first instance.
Yeah. Well, it kind of leads me on to my second one. Because my second one was connect. So, and what came up for me around this is its connection with others and with self, with the present moment. Like I used to think when I started helping people with depression, I would always talk about connection with others. And I think there is something magical about connecting with other people, but I do also think it's more than that. I think it's that connection. For me, that whole, when I think about my experience of depression, it's about, being essentially just disconnected from myself and what I need, and often somewhat up in my head, or what will drive it is me being up in my head worrying about shit for me.
Yeah.
And then that's where the stress starts, and then I'm incapable, and the stories, and then my body's responding to that until eventually it goes, right, we're having the keys off you, you're not driving anymore. Yeah. And so, and for me, the logical conclusion of connecting and getting present is you find love.
Yeah.
Because then the fear and the judgment drops away.
Yeah.
And if I think about myself having said this 2 years ago, I think I was a fucking hippie, because that made no sense. But the more and more I find, I see through it now. I see through those. Even this week when stuff started to get on top of me, eventually it's like, I saw it. It's because I've stopped being so present. It's because I've started getting tricked into, I just need to do this and I just need to do that, and then not being as kind to myself, and I'm getting sucked in by the story of this has to happen or something bad will happen. Even on a low level, because I've set this deadline, I need to email back that person, and then before you know it, everything's feeling a bit heavy and a bit like, and then something kicks in. And it's like, oh, I know where this ends. And I think we had a discussion, right? I'm like, I've got 40 minutes before a call and I could smash through this to-do list, and something in my brain went, fuck the list and get in the bath.
Yeah.
Get in the bath and get present and do something kind.
Yes. Isn't it amazing that kicks in now?
Well, but for me, there's two parts of that, because part of it is, yes, stopping and doing something kind for myself. But actually, I think a lot of the magic is just in the realization, in going, because in being able to make that decision, I've stepped out of the illusion that all this stuff I think is absolutely urgent and bad stuff will happen, and all the stress is like, it's kind of a bit made up. And I've seen that by the very nature that I can go, that list can wait.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But it's amazing what can happen in the moment when you're not present.
Yeah.
Because then you're in the story.
Well, I think, a big thing that happened to me in terms of depression was, so I got promoted to my level of incompetence at work when I was still employed and had a regular job. So I might even say a real job.
What the fuck?
I often say that as a joke, and I realise that's terribly self-deprecating. But no, when I had a regular job, yeah, I got promoted to a job where I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but it was kind of the perfect storm of it was the perfect storm of circumstance that kind of didn't match my model of the world. So I'd been promoted to this position. I didn't really know what I was doing in the job, and I didn't really also like the job, but I also didn't know my boss and didn't really then trust my boss. And yeah, I felt kind of stuck. And part of me was like, yeah, my heart's not in this. And I realized that there was a level of I could really take this on board and learn it and have it as skill, but I didn't want to. Like, I just felt like my heart wasn't in it, and every time I tried, it felt like walking through treacle. Yet at the same time, the idea of leaving, I had all this fear of like, I can't do anything else, and what happens if I don't find another job? And it was all very it looked like the only other option that I would have would be to take another job in another field. In the same field. But then I had all these stories about, well, if I do that, then I've just got to move somewhere else. There's going to be more pressure, more responsibility. I don't know the team there. So I got stuck in this place that I often call comfortable misery, which ironically isn't very fucking comfortable. But it felt safer than stepping out of it.
Yeah.
But then I started getting triggered into depression more often. And I didn't understand what it was back then. Because before, when I'd get depressed, I'd just say to my boss at the time, I'm not feeling good, and then I wouldn't go in, and they were quite good about it. But I had a different boss at this point, and he said to me, look, you need to do something about it. Like, I'll support you, but you need to do something about it. And that kind of started my journey out of it, because before then, what had been happening was, I was just kind of keeping quiet. I didn't understand it, but I wasn't trying to understand it. I was just hoping it would go away. And I wasn't talking to other people. I was spending my time, like, when certain things came up and I wasn't sure, I was trying to like cover it. And that for me is that whole sense of isolation and hiding. But then, of course, because I'm alone with the problem, I feel even more helpless, because I know I can't do it on my own, but I don't feel I can ask for help.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into maintaining this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which nicely brings me on to my next one, which is healing.
Healing, do tell.
So I know that my depression was a lot about things that had happened to me that I never examined, that I never processed, and most of all, that I never had the opportunity to really heal from. So I guess my understanding of life at the time was that shit happens to you and you pretty much just put it into this box, you tape it shut, and you go stick it in some dark corner somewhere and you never talk about it ever again. And that's how it works with challenging things that happen. But so much stuff happened that I'd never spoken about, I never really processed it, and I definitely hadn't healed from it. So it was like walking around with open wounds.
Right.
And then getting into similar situations the whole time, thinking that I'd somehow armored myself to that. And then obviously not, because it was a self-fulfilling kind of cycle of having to prove the same thing again and again. So I got into the same situations again. Only for the wound to be just opened up again, because I go through the same thing again. But I know that I was confirming something to myself at the same time. It's like, this is what I am.
Yeah.
But there was no healing going on. There was no recognition that actually I've got this wound and it hurts. It's painful. Just tried to hide it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change anything. It just means that I kept carrying all of that pain from one situation to another, and ultimately to a point where I felt like I couldn't cope with the amount of pain.
Yeah.
And then shut down because it just felt too much.
That's
But
the
actually,
isolation bit, isn't it?
yeah, it's the isolation bit. Yeah. And then I almost felt like people could see it. So I would isolate myself further. It's like if I'm in front of people, that's what they're going to see. They're going to see it. Of course, it's all in there. They're just going to see it. Like, because obviously when I looked in the mirror or whatever, that's what I saw, right? I saw this broken, fucked up human being. And it was like, obviously everybody else can see it if I can see it. But that healing process, for me, it's a process to cherish. Lots of people kind of maybe ignore it or think that it's not necessary. And I know that I go through that process with a lot of clients as well. It's like an acknowledgement of this is what I went through. And it was painful and it hurt. And these are the feelings. Because otherwise, what I found was that it turned into a long story that I would just bring into every situation with me. And it just grew longer and longer and longer. Like I have to defend myself in every single relationship. Somehow I have to have this wall that protects me rather than doing anything about it. So, yeah, I think healing is a process that requires some space.
It's interesting you talking about that because I think I didn't like that would have made no sense to me early on in my journey because I very much saw. I suppose you could let me talk through that. So because I saw depression as something that was happening to me, I remember even thinking at some point, like I know it's a chemical imbalance thing because I can feel some days I wake up and I can feel like there's a difference physically in my head, as it were. I wasn't aware of why that was though. I was just I couldn't work it out, so I assumed, oh, it's just entirely physiological, so it must be a chemical imbalance thing. But then the more I learned, I started to see that it was about me and the beliefs that I had, or how I felt about myself. And so healing now makes sense to me. It's like, why does it look like that? Why do you believe that about yourself? Why do you think you're incapable?
Yeah.
Why do you? But I was never asking myself those questions before. But when I think about when I think about what happened when I was with my when I was at work, so I'd been trying to hide stuff and just get along. And when I think about it, it wasn't even I wasn't hiding big stuff. It was more just I was just not asking for the help. I didn't want to look stupid and go, I don't know what I'm doing. Can somebody help me? So of course, because I wasn't asking for the help, I wasn't getting any help. So I didn't realize I was kind of creating that sense of isolation. Yeah. It was my boss actually then that, because he said about me needing to get help, that kind of prompted me to then do something. And of course I started to feel better even then. But of course, why? Because I'm now doing something about it rather than feeling helpless. Yeah. But I really saw stuff change for me because that had kind of that had started to get better, because that led me eventually to go, do you know what, I'm going to train to be a therapist myself, because I'd got some therapy and it wasn't particularly great, and something in my brain went, oh, fucking hell, if this is what they're offering, then maybe I can do better. And I went the private route and then started training myself. But then that gave me a sense of purpose, and I didn't feel so stuck in my job. But then what happened when my then boss found out that I was, I think I'd asked him to go part-time basically, and I think he found when he heard that, I think he realized my heart wasn't in it. Yeah. And then I got put on this. I didn't hear from him for about a month, and then suddenly this performance review plan appeared out of nowhere.
As it does.
As it does, yeah. And then, it was awful, because I suddenly felt massively alone. It felt like, I don't know, I felt fucked. I was like, shit, I'm going to lose my job, and then like, can't do anything about it, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember going home and feeling really depressed. And then something in me at that point switched, where I suddenly realized, you've got two choices. You can go in tomorrow and put your head down like you're used to doing, or you can be honest about what's going on and see what happens. And at that point, when I went in and I just said to everybody, I said, look, guys, I'm in trouble here. Like, I've been given this performance review plan. I need your help with like getting all this stuff ready for my boss. Like, can you help me out? And because I then connected, bang, everything changed. Like, they were like, of course. We were like, and that was probably like the best 2 weeks of my time there in the previous 2 or 3 years, because I'd been open, because I'd been honest, because I'd stepped towards it, and I'd connected with myself, and I'd connected with everybody else, and it was like, yeah, now I feel capable, like we can do it.
Love it.
I mean, the kicker was then eventually I found out. It's like, all right. Well, yeah, I'm not sure I can tell that story because of a contract I signed, but anyway.
Okay, we're going to leave that right there then. Thank you.
But what that really showed me how kind of perceptual it was looking back, how I'd felt helpless in the past. And then when that came up again, suddenly I was like, I can do something different about this.
Yeah.
And then in doing that, everything shifted. Those people were always there and would always have been willing to help me. I just needed to reach out.
Love it. And it is amazing what difference it makes when we get out of our head and do something different.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing for me about when I recall about being in the depths of depression, especially because I was often beating like for me, I don't know whether it's always true, but there's often a sense of like shame or hidingness that comes with depression. It's like, I'm not okay and I need to hide from you. And so it can almost seem counterintuitive, or it's almost like we don't want to reach out. But every time I've been able to connect, assuming it's, with the right person, where it's it's met with love and acceptance rather than someone that's just going to judge me.
Yep.
There is something magical about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it is the harder thing to do. But I guess if you do it once, you start to create a different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
So, what's your third one?
Did you do your third one?
I've done 2, I think. Have you not done 2? Have you done 3? I'm sure that was my second. Well, you've got fucking 28, so you don't know where you're at.
I'm sure the order... Okay, so now it's going to be on the listeners. I'm sure the order... Did I go first? Am I getting this wrong? Anyway, because I thought I just did healing. What was your next one?
Watch the shoulds.
Did you actually say that?
I didn't say that. No, you're right. My bad. I followed up on yours. That's why. Amy's got arms of triumph because she's just realised she's right. And I'm talking absolute shit.
Yeah.
I'd love to say, ha, nearly got ya. But that would be horseshit.
Don't try that shit with me. Yeah. Go on.
So my third one then is watch the shoulds.
I love that.
Because something for me, I've realised it's been a big thing about my journey is the shoulds. And I've realised how insidious they can be. Like sometimes it's really obvious, and I hear it now in people's language because I'm so used to hearing it in my own. But I've even realised, even nowadays, like I rarely say the word should about I should do something, but sometimes it's still there. It's still there in the thinking pattern. It's this assumption that this thing needs to happen for other things to be okay. And then the other, the other presupposition, which is, and if it doesn't, yeah, bad things will happen, and it might mean something about me or something I can't handle. Yeah. And you could argue that sometimes they're like, really important things, Chernobyl, for example. If we're going to go to the extreme.
What train of thought? Just, I'm not even going there.
Well, because what I'm saying is, if you take it out to the extreme and you say like, oh, nothing has to happen, it's like, well, certain things probably do need to happen, or bad shit can happen, right? But for example, if I've got in my mind that I absolutely have to email a client today or something, or bad shit will happen, it's like, is it really going to be bad if I don't? Like, what's the worst that will happen? Like, sometimes you could say that in some cases it is really important, or like bad shit could potentially happen, but more often than not, it's not as black and white as that. And that doesn't mean fuck you, I'm not going to email you. Like I was sending I'd sent a proposal to somebody, and I promised them a proposal. I forget when it was. It was this week.
That does make it sound like it's some sort of marriage proposal. I was gonna send you a proposal.
That's where your mind took it. I was thinking more of a contractual proposal, but okay, because that's the same thing. Anyway, but in my mind, I'm like, I need to do that. And then at some point I realized, do you know what? Actually, what I can do is I can just text them and be honest and be like, I'm sorry, I know I promised this to you, but I'm not going to be able to do it today, but I will do it tomorrow. And the weight that lifted, because I realized that, and okay, ideally I could have been a man of my word, but I was still a man of my word, because I've said, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to not deliver, but I'm going to deliver tomorrow, rather than put all that pressure on myself, because that was the plan, right? But then the world changed. And I find what I found through my journey is so often the shoulds they were linked to this idea of this plan in my mind of how things should be, of how they have to be, and then me trying to make reality fit that and being really anxious and stressed about not being able to make it fit. And often then making decisions like not having enough sleep or not doing enough fun stuff to make that happen. And then eventually playing that game, my brain just goes, nope, we're going to make you take a break. And then what would keep me in that like level of, that place of exhaustion or mind exhaustion was all the judgments going, see, you should be doing this. You should be better at this. You should be able to.
Shoulding all over the place.
Shoulding. So watch the shoulds.
Love that. Yeah, shoulds is a big one. I guess sometimes shoulds for me also allow me to kind of go, I should do this. Not because I want to, but because somebody else wants me to. So I should, which kind of gets me off the hook a little bit. So
I should answer the door when the Amazon driver turns up. Amy's giving me the finger. That's how I know that's how I know I win, when I get the finger.
Oh. See what I have to put up with, people. All for the love of our listeners.
That's it. Blame them.
Oh, stop that shit.
No.
Yeah, I knew that's what was going to be said, but hey ho. Okay. So my third one.
I thought you had three. This is not your fault.
Did I go first? Have I done my three?
I don't know. I just thought I'd say that anyway. I've got another finger.
Yeah.
2-0.
Just wait till we stop this recording.
Chop chop, we're getting on for the hour.
Seriously? Anyway, moving on. I guess, and I know I've used it in another one, but it's the whole premise of committing and practicing and repeating. And I'm breaking that down as small as I can, because what I would love to say to people is take one step, just one step, commit to just one little thing, because there's that whole big thing. And I guess I know that I pretty much just wanted to smash through it all and just go, yes, I'm okay now. I just want to get to the other side of that very, very quickly. I want to be in this place.
Avoidance.
Yeah, exactly. Avoid. But to make anything different, like, and it was a place of wishing, right? That somebody's gonna wave a magic wand, or magically somehow something's gonna land on my lap that's just gonna change everything. Or one day I'm gonna wake up and I'm just gonna feel completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And until I took some form of ownership and committed to taking one step, nothing changed. And it didn't have to be a massive step. But just even going, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go and I'm going to take a walk in the park because that's something I enjoy. And just really allowing yourself to be with that, which comes back to yours about presence and being there and just and see what's different.
Yeah. Well, and what I heard in what you were saying as well is that it's that step towards like proving capability.
Yeah.
Like when I was employed, in a way, I helped reinforce the position I was in, helped reinforce the pattern that I was helpless, because I knew if I felt unable to go in or do something different, I could ring up, I could just say like I can't make it, and it was like okay. So of course that just fulfilled that. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I remember still struggling with depression when I first started seeing clients, which messed with my head anyway, because it's like, oh shit, how can I be a therapist who still gets depressed? But I remember waking up on a morning and being like, I can't see clients today. Like I can't. But then what was a more important can't was what I realized I can't sack them off. Because where my head played it out was, but if I do that, I'm going to let them down. But also, I'm just kicking the can. I realized, like, am I going to want to, am I going to want to do tomorrow, or and I was worried about, where will that leave, all this other stuff. And basically, it was like, well, I've got to. And in a way, it wasn't a good place to be in, because I almost felt like I was forced to. But when I did that, like when I opened the door, it was like, oh, I just snapped into therapist mode, and I got out of my head. And the first time it happened, I was really surprised, because then when they left, I felt better. And now I know it's because I just spent 2 hours not being in my head about how much of a shit person I am, and I've been 2 hours present with someone else. I've had a connected conversation and felt like I could do something again, the capability thing. So then, I'm thinking about all the stuff I thought about, and I'm like, well, that doesn't seem to ring true anymore. And that started to be really interesting to me. And that's when I started to see it as something that was, not what it looked to be like.
Yeah. And that's it, right? Just like that one thing, if you can see that one even tiny thing, just slightly differently, it means it will disrupt that story.
Yeah.
Like there'll be another point of reference to kind of go, but it's not always like that.
Yeah. The truth changes.
Yeah, changes shape. So yeah, my third one is that, and repeat that small thing on a daily basis, because unfortunately it is about making that commitment, and it is about repeat and practice, because I had to practice again and again and again, and that's ultimately what it was, practicing doing something different. It's not just a thing. And I know you and I both have experiences of people kind of, oh, it's okay for you, or blah blah blah, all that stuff, and it's like it's the thing that's different is that I practice.
Yeah.
And I keep doing it again and again and again. And then the story starts to change.
That's it for me, though, because that practice then, I guess it's chicken and egg, right? Because you need to, sometimes you see something and that means then you do something differently. And sometimes because you do something differently, you see something. But for me, the practice comes because, like for me, part of depression is, like if I stop doing things that are enjoyable, or I stop and yeah, if I stop doing things that are enjoyable, and I stop doing things that I feel capable of doing, I can end up in that shitty place. And then in that in itself is a practice of making sure that I'm aware of those things and I keep doing the things that nourish me. I can't just hope that just because I understand this stuff that I can get into bad habits.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. It's that. Because even now I guess there's an awareness when I'm falling back into that space.
Yeah.
And it's that makes the difference. It's not that I'm never gonna, I can't say that I'm never gonna be in that space again. I can't say that I'm never gonna feel like that again, because that would be wrong of me to say. And I'm not different to anybody else. I choose to have the awareness.
So, any closing thoughts on depression?
Yeah, slow down. Wherever you are right now, it's okay. It's okay. Just one tiny step.
Mine would be reach out, connect. Isolation just breeds depression and shame and all that horrible stuff. So mine would be reach out. You don't have to be alone with it.
No, you don't.
Just leave it there.
Yeah, done.
You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery and Deep Shit, with your TheraCoach hosts,
David Bird
and Amy Dave.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing, helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's AMI.DAVE.11.
The Notcast.